Hi everyone, I'm Ignixia. I'm a lifestyle BDSM and kink educator, and I've taught pretty much all over the U.S. and a little bit of outside the country as well. This is Kaylee. She's my service animal. She's a Belgian Tavern for those that are wondering. Say hi, Kaylee. She may or may not actually engage with the camera, but we'll see. Today I'm here to talk about what it looks like for BDSM and disabilities, especially with service animals, and where consent plays into that. First thing that I'm going to talk about is a common misconception of service animals, and that is that they don't have to wear a marking that says that they're a service animal. There is no requirement for registration. There's no overruling group that you're supposed to register a service animal with. A lot of times you will see dogs with markings or different service animals with markings just because it makes it easier for other people to tell that that is a service animal. But right now she has on just her collar, and if I really wanted to, I could take her out in public with just that. No leash, no vest, no markings of any kind. And she would still have to be allowed places so long as I let them know that she's a service animal. Things that people kind of get confused on with service animals is they think that they have to be registered somewhere, and that's just not the case. There's no group that is in charge of that. Things that you can find out about service animals: if you are in charge of a business or an organization and you're worried about a service animal coming in and finding out whether they're a service animal or not, you can ask if it's a service animal. You can ask that. You can also ask, what tests does that service animal provide? What you can't ask is what my disability is. You can't ask what's wrong with me. That's a terrible question to ask. But you can just, hey, is that a service animal? What kind of tasks do they provide? But you can't ask for proof of any of that. Trying to ask someone to prove what their disability is just it doesn't work. It's kind of just a really bad area to get into. So try to stay away from those areas. Most people that have service animals aren't exactly living a situation where they really want to deal with this to begin with, and then telling them that you don't believe them. It's not a good route to go, so just try to avoid that. Second point of question, don't touch me or my service animal without permission. It seems like it's a basic consent issue, but people still have a hard time wrapping their head around it. I mean, come on, when you see this cute little face, who doesn't want to come up and give her some love? And I understand that she's cute. That's part of why I picked her out, because she's adorable. But it's also because she's good at her job. So remember that she is working when she's out with me, and she's got her little backpack and all of the stuff so that it makes it easier for people to identify her as a service animal. It's because she's working. She's actively trying to do a job to assist me. If you sit there and want to come up and just pet her, or you come up and touch her without asking, it disrupts what she's doing. And one of the things that people will argue with me about is, well, so-and-so just got to pet her. I'm her handler. She's my dog. I'm allowed to say yes to some people and no to some people. You don't know what's going on. Maybe they're considering getting a service animal as well. Maybe it's somebody that's part of my family. There's a whole lot of situations that play into why my service animal might be interacting with one person and not another. And it's not one of those where I want to be mean and just prevent people from playing with her. It's just what it is. So please take it as that. Don't make kissy faces at her. Don't make cute noises. This is one of those that we get a lot. We'll be walking around and people want to, hey puppy, hey baby. See, she reacts. I mean, right now she's not in work mode anyways, but dogs are going to react to that. They've been taught that that's a good sign. And what that could do, again, from distracting from her job, it also could mean that if she does try to go walk over to you, she could pull me with her. I could lose balance and fall, which could put me in the hospital. all because you wanted to make kissy faces. So let's not do that. As far as kink it puts into play, imagine that you're in the middle of a really good scene, or you're in a really deep headspace, and all of a sudden somebody comes over to your partner or sitting across the dungeon space and is making kissy faces at your partner. You're both going to get distracted. You're going to wonder what's going on, and it's going to pretty much throw everything off. So don't do that with service animals either, just like you would in a dungeon space or in a local meeting space. Doing it to people, not a good idea. Doing it to service animals, also not a good idea. Sometimes I walk with a cane, and sometimes I don't. I understand that a lot of times people will try to check in and go, "Hey, what's going on? Or you've got a cane today." And a certain level of asking is fine. I appreciate a certain level of, "Hey, are you okay? I noticed that there's a difference today." That's fine. What is not okay is, "Oh my God, what happened?" Too often we run into a situation like that where somebody will make a big deal about the fact that we're in a cane or a wheelchair or we're walking with some kind of assistance. And it just makes you feel worse about what you've already got going on. So try not to do that if you can. I know that when we see our friends suddenly look more injured than we thought they were, it makes it kind of one of those where we want to check in and we want to see what's going on, which is fine. Just be careful about the way that you're saying it. Be concerned, but not over dramatic. Part of that also plays into that just because I don't have my cane that day doesn't mean that I'm faking it when I do. Seems like it should be a silly thing that I have to bring up, but unfortunately, it turns into a situation for some people where they just don't believe you if you're not constantly using a mobility issue. There are some days where Kaylee stays home. There are some days where she's with me. Usually if I'm using my extra mobility devices and services, it's because I'm having a bad day. So try not to, if you've got friends that are having different chronic pain conditions or different disabilities, don't make it a bigger deal because they're using that. Don't automatically assume that I can't do something because of my pain or disability. This is thankfully not something I've run into too many times, but I know that there are friends that will have this issue quite often where they might have their cane or their wheelchair or something to help them move around, and they'll go to pick something up or go to any kind of activity, you name it, and somebody's automatically trying to jump to their aid. And while in most cases it'll be, I guess, helpful to offer assistance, don't automatically assume that just because somebody has a mobility issue that they just can't do it. If somebody came up and just grabbed something out of your hands, your immediate gut reaction would be, "What the heck, dude?" So the same thing is true when you've got somebody that's got a mobility issue and they might seem like they're struggling with something. Don't automatically just come and grab it from them. Just ask. Just like anything else that's consent related. Just a simple, "Hey, could you use a hand, or can I help you with anything?" And be okay with the fact that they might say no. They might say, no, I've got this. It's just going to take me a second. Don't try to push the assistance because they just might not need it. It just might take them an extra second. Okay. So this is one that a lot of people don't really think about when you go to your local dungeons and play spaces, is that not all play spaces and dungeons are disability friendly. Well, what does that mean? A lot of local dungeons and play spaces, if you take a look around, can a wheelchair easily navigate that space? There are quite a few events and play spaces that have gotten really good about making sure that their attendees that have different mobility issues are able to get in and out easier. But there are also still quite a few that are set up so that they unfortunately can't fit a wheelchair through. And this becomes its own issue. If you're trying to get to a dungeon space and your favorite piece of equipment is way in the back corner and you've got to do this just to get through everything, That may not be the easiest thing when you've got a wheelchair or a cane or crutches or any of those types of mobility issues. So when you're planning those spaces out, if you can, try to give a couple extra feet so that somebody can easily navigate those spaces. I know it's tough. We're trying to cram as much kink into one space as we possibly can, but I promise you, your attendees with disabilities and mobility issues will thank you, and they'll be very much appreciated when it means that they don't have to trip over things in their way to get to their favorite spot. Another thing to look at is, are service animals allowed in your space? A lot of play spaces won't allow dogs or service animals of different kinds because they're afraid that a whip's going to crack or somebody's going to scream and the dog's going to go crazy. What you've got to remember is that these dogs are trained to not respond to those extra stimulus. They're trained not to freak out because a whip is cracked. My partner and I throw whips all the time. Kaylee will sleep right through it. We actually went to an event once where somebody brought out, I think it was like a 12-foot whip, and they were cracking it in the vendor space, and she was asleep right under the table. And they were concerned that it might cause an issue, and they'd actually forgotten that she was there because she was so quiet. So remember that they're trained, to respond or not respond to certain things. And I understand that there's some concern, especially with animals that may or may not have that extra training. So if you are a handler or if you have a service animal, make sure that you are exposing them to those kinds of sounds if you can. That way, when you go to a play space, they're more likely to be allowed in. For those that are saying, well, this is ridiculous, service animals are supposed to be allowed wherever. Yes, they're legally supposed to be allowed in all public spaces, but you have to remember that a lot of dungeons and play spaces and events are owned by private groups. They're privately run parties. They're not necessarily falling under the line of a public space anymore. And at the same time, you're running into the issue of, if the owner of the space or if the event organizer is really not comfortable with it, they can just deny you access to the play space. It may be one of those where they're not necessarily denying the dog or the service animal, whatever you may have, but they're going to deny both of you, which is within their rights. So it's kind of one of those, you've got to sit down and have a conversation if you can. If you are wanting to go somewhere and you're not sure that your space is going to allow your service animal, ask. They might want to see that the dog's not going to react to a whip crack or react to somebody screaming. And part of that just comes down to being able to show that you really do have control over what your animal is doing. And unfortunately, there's some situations where people that don't have control over their animal are not helping that situation. So, six in one hand, half a dozen in the other, I guess. But sitting down and having a conversation, I think, will help ease a lot of that on both sides. Last thing that we're going to cover, no still means no. When you're dealing with disabilities and chronic pain issues, just like anything else, sex, BDSM, kink related, no still means no. I've had people get upset. They wanted a hug, and I told them no. And, we don't want our feelings hurt. We don't want to hurt our friends' feelings. But there are some days where a hug or a handshake or whatever it happens to be is just not within that person's realm of comfort. And it's, the gut reaction is it's not a personal thing, but it is. It's a personal thing. It's a personal self-care thing. People want to be comfortable. They want to not be under pressure to give you that hug or handshake or whatever it is just because you're expecting it, especially when they're in a lot of pain, they're not feeling good. So if somebody does tell you no, just say thank you for telling me. And, maybe it's a different situation later on, maybe not. And that has to be okay. It can't be one of those that, well, how dare you tell me no? It's a no's a no. Just accept it and go on from there. So I hope that this little bit about chronic pain and disabilities in service animals has helped. And if you've got any more questions, please feel free to reach out. Well, I'm sure we'll add all kinds of links and information. If you are looking for more information on service animals and the requirements of such, visit www.ada.gov. That's the Americans with Disabilities website. So www.ada.gov. All right, bye.